My name is Emily Carter, and for the past 10 years, I have lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood just outside of Denver. On the surface, my life seemed picture perfect. I had a steady job at the local library, a small but cozy home, and a husband named Michael whom I married right after college. To outsiders, we looked like the typical American couple, smiling in Christmas photos, attending barbecues in the summer, and sending holiday cards with cheerful messages. But behind closed doors, things were different. The truth is, my marriage was far from what I imagined when I first said, I do. Michael wasn't a bad man. He worked as an accountant, paid the bills on time, and never raised his voice at me. But over the years, I started to realize that there was something missing, something vital that I craved but never received. Michael wasn't emotionally present. He rarely noticed the little things, never asked how I truly felt, and avoided deeper conversations. Our marriage had turned into a partnership of convenience, and though we lived under the same roof, I often felt completely alone. For 5 years, I tried to fix it. I planned date nights, wrote him notes, and even suggested marriage counseling. But Michael always dismissed my efforts. "We're fine, Emily," he would say with a tired smile. "You worry too much." But inside, I was slowly breaking apart. I longed for someone who would really see me, not just share the same kitchen and bedroom, but truly notice my heart. It wasn't until our neighbor, Daniel Miller, moved in next door that things began to change. Daniel was in his early 40s, a widower with kind eyes and a quiet strength about him. He had moved into the neighborhood after losing his wife to cancer, hoping for a fresh start. From the very first time I met him, when he politely introduced himself while carrying boxes into his new home, I sensed a gentleness that felt rare. Our first real interaction came one autumn afternoon when I was struggling to rake the heavy pile of leaves in my front yard. Michael was working late as usual, and I had been out there alone for nearly an hour. Out of nowhere, Daniel appeared with his own rake in hand. "Looks like you could use some help," he said with a warm smile. I tried to politely decline, but he insisted, and within minutes, he was working alongside me. We talked as we worked, about books, music, and the quiet beauty of Colorado in the fall. It was the first real conversation I had enjoyed in years. That day was small, almost ordinary, but it was the beginning of something I didn't yet understand. Over the months that followed, Daniel and I became friends. Whenever I came home from the library, I would often see him tending his garden, fixing something around his house, or simply sitting on his porch with a book. We exchanged small talk at first, but those small talks grew into longer conversations. He asked questions no one else did, about my passions, my childhood, my dreams. And he listened. Really listened. Meanwhile, my marriage with Michael continued to decline. He buried himself in work, coming home exhausted and distracted. We hardly spoke anymore, and when we did, it was about bills, errands, or schedules. I tried again to bring up counseling, but he brushed it off. The silence between us was louder than any argument could have been. One evening, it all came to a breaking point. I had spent hours preparing a special dinner for our anniversary, hoping it might rekindle something between us. I set the table with candles, cooked his favorite meal, and wore the dress he once told me I looked beautiful in. But when Michael finally walked through the door, he barely noticed. "I'm too tired to eat," he muttered, heading straight to the couch to watch television. I sat at the table alone, staring at the untouched food, tears filling my eyes. That night, I realized something painful. I could no longer pretend everything was fine. The next day, as if sensing my broken heart, Daniel knocked on my door. He had baked an apple pie, his late wife's recipe, he explained, and thought I might like some. I invited him in, and for the first time, I opened up about my struggles. I told him about the loneliness, the years of trying to make things work, the way I felt invisible in my own home. I expected judgment, but instead, Daniel simply listened, his eyes filled with empathy. "You deserve to be seen, Emily," he said softly. "You deserve to feel loved." That simple statement cracked something open inside me. It wasn't romantic, at least not yet. It was something deeper. He had given me what Michael hadn't in 5 long years: validation. As months passed, our bond deepened. Daniel never crossed boundaries, but He was there for me in ways my husband wasn't. When my car broke down, Daniel fixed it without hesitation. When I fell sick with the flu, he checked in with soup and medicine. When I had a rough day at work, he sat on the porch with me and let me talk until I felt lighter. Slowly, I realized that what Daniel gave me was not just kindness, it was genuine care. The kind of care I had begged for in my marriage, but never received. Of course, guilt weighed heavily on me. I wasn't having an affair, but emotionally, I was beginning to lean on Daniel more than Michael. I wrestled with the question late at night. Was it wrong to find comfort in someone else? Or was it simply human to seek the love and connection my husband had long denied me? The turning point came one snowy evening in December. The power went out across the neighborhood, and Michael was once again stuck at the office. I sat in the dark, wrapping a blanket around myself, when there was a knock at the door. It was Daniel, holding a lantern. "Thought you might need some light," he said with a smile. He stayed for hours, and we talked by candlelight. At one point, I laughed so hard I had tears in my eyes, something I hadn't done in years. When he finally left, I sat in the quiet glow of the candles, realizing the truth. My neighbor had given me more joy, more comfort, and more love in a few months than my husband had in 5 years. That realization terrified me, but it also set me free. I could no longer deny what my heart knew. The next day, I sat down with Michael. My hands trembled as I told him everything, the loneliness, the years of trying, and the truth that I couldn't go on like this anymore. He listened silently, his face unreadable. When I finished, he simply sighed and said, "I guess I never really knew how to be what you needed." It wasn't angry. It wasn't dramatic. It was just the quiet end of something that had already been broken for years. Our divorce was painful, yes, but it was also a relief. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. And though Daniel never pressured me, never asked for anything, he continued to be there. Slowly, over time, our friendship blossomed into something more. It wasn't about passion or drama. It was about being seen, understood, and loved for who I was. Daniel did what my husband couldn't in 5 years. He made me feel alive again. And that, more than anything, taught me the greatest lesson of all, that love isn't about the grand gestures or perfect appearances. It's about showing up, day after day, with kindness, patience, and a genuine heart. Today, as I look out at the garden Daniel and I tend together, I realize that sometimes life takes us down painful roads only to lead us exactly where we belong.